As we often point out, the V'ahavta, which Tessa just chanted, contains an important phrase from Torah. V'shinantam levanecha. Take all the lessons of Judaism and teach them intently to the next generation. Reminding us that passing Judaism on to the next generation is our obligation. And as I mark this 25th year in my rabbinic journey and thank this community, I must also thank my parents who are watching online and my grandparents who are watching from above, who despite very untraditional untraditional Jewish upbringing, gave me the gift of Judaism, often in really surprising ways. I grew up with two Jewish parents. My mom largely assimilated, my dad rejecting what he often referred to as the synagogue fur coat fashion shows that lacked meaning. So while I knew I was Jewish, there was very little Judaism in my home. I didn't attend Hebrew school. I didn't have a bar mitzvah until I chose to have one at the age of 26. But the truth is, even though I was raised with little Yiddishkeit, it was ultimately because of my parents and my grandparents that I chose to connect with my faith and eventually become a rabbi. From my mother, I learned spirituality. She taught me about God and prayer and gave me a sense that I was part of something much bigger than myself. And I believe that she got this from her mom, my grandmother, who was a powerful presence in my life. Though assimilated as well, my grandmother was a candle lighter. Whenever somebody needed good energy, she would light a candle and place it in her sink. And sometimes there were 15 candles in the sink. When she passed away in 2015, and I lit her Shiva candle, and now each year her yahrzeit candle, I realized how her practice, while different, was deeply grounded in Judaism. She was the one who safeguarded my great-grandmother's Shabbat candlesticks that some of you know about, one of the few possessions that my great-grandmother brought to America as a young girl. Each week she would pawn them on Monday to feed her family, and she would buy them back on Friday for Shabbat. My grandmother made certain I inherited them, our greatest family heirloom, along with her lessons about the spiritual power of candles. My father, in his own way, brought Judaism into our home. He made sure that we lit the Chanukah candles. I didn't understand why, but I knew it made me different from all of my Christmas celebrating friends. And different wasn't bad. Different made me curious enough to begin exploring what connected me to those Chanukah candles. My father also taught me a lesson about the Holocaust that took nearly 50 years to fully understand. It was in the 1970s when a docuseries on the Shoah aired. And my father told me he and my mother would watch it in the TV room. Some of you are old enough like me to remember TV rooms. I was told, don't come in. I broke the rules, and I snuck in, only to see disturbing images before being escorted out by my father. And that forbidden glance gave me my first glimpse of the Holocaust, a nightmare I later learned directly impacted my family. This summer, I traveled with my dad and many of you to Dachau, and it was his first time in a concentration camp. And I could see the pain on his face and the tension in his body. And afterwards, as we talked about the experience, I asked if he remembered escorting me out of the TV room years ago. He didn't. But he did share something so powerful with me. He said many of our family members were victims of the Holocaust. I knew it, he said, but my parents never talked about it. I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I didn't know how to explain it to you, he explained. So I didn't. And at that moment, I realized silence can be as loud as words. Sometimes through silence, we transmit pain that takes decades to interpret. His silence years ago and his willingness to speak about it after Dachau are now central to my Jewish journey. And so are the countless lessons shared by my mother's father, my grandfather, raised in the Orthodox world of the Lower East Side of New York, and craving to be a full-fledged American. My grandfather fled as quickly as he could from his Jewish life. As my teenage curiosity about Judaism grew, sparked in part by my father's introducing me to Chanukah, I asked my grandfather questions, and he apologized for running away from his faith and for leaving me disconnected, but I told him no apology was needed, and together we began to talk about our family's Judaism, our roots in Europe, my great-great-grandfather, who was a rabbi. And I still remember him showing me this photograph and noticing that this man and I have exactly the same eyes. And for some reason, those eyes made me want to learn more. And my grandfather was delighted. We talked about Jewish prayer and rituals and his traditional upbringing. Our exchanges allowed me to discover that I was part of a people, the Jewish people, a people that I wanted to belong to. And the more that I learned, the more missing pieces of my life fell into place. My grandfather's lessons allowed me to get to this moment. And I'm so grateful because many of you remember how he used to sit in that front row, beaming at his grandson, the rabbi. And I would remind him that none of this would have been possible without him. So as we begin this new year, I invite you to join me in reflecting on family members who gave you the gift of Judaism. And right now, at the cusp of this new year, commit to passing their gift on to the next generation. And as we do so, I invite you to turn with us to page 318 and cross the Red Sea together.